Well, guess what? Illegal immigrants aren't the only people that we're just letting waltz right into the country. According to the Washington Free Beacon, earlier this month, Senator Chuck Grassley published documents that show the Department of Homeland Security has a secret hands-off list that allows foreigners with, get this, terrorism ties to enter the country freely. So it's like some kind of fast pass at the amusement park or something. Some of the names on the list are members of the Muslim Brotherhood, and one guy actually has ties to Hezbollah and Hamas. After publishing the documents, Senator Grassley was given a closed-door meeting with DHS, but it yielded next to nothing, so he's still demanding answers. Joining me now to talk about this is Adam Kredo. He's a senior writer at the Washington Free Beacon. All right, you've been on the radio show a bunch of times. Welcome to the TV show. We're talking about some really insane topics tonight. A Marine in jail, a second race-based system in Hawaii, and now letting guys with ties to Hamas right into the country.
Well, that's right. I mean, look, we have very little information about this list, and the bottom line is we need more about it. We only know the name of the one individual in question that was released by Grassley's office because I was able to speak with somebody who saw an unredacted version of these emails. These emails were heavily blacked out. They're online and people can look at them, but what we need is more information about it. We only know of Badawi, this one fellow who's linked to Hezbollah, Hamas, the Muslim Brotherhood, because of this person who was able to give me insider information about it. Otherwise, we know very, very little.
Do we know why this list even exists? Why would we want anybody tied to the Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas, or Hezbollah to come into this country, and freely at that?
Look, that's a very good question, and we don't know. What we learned from this briefing that, as you said, yielded next to nothing, that's from Grassley's office, what we learned is that they're denying a hands-off list even exists. And it's preposterous because all we need to do is, again, look at these emails. They were sent between ICE officials, Customs and Border Patrol, and they show that this individual was de-watch listed, that there is a hands-off list in existence. And according to some of the sources that I've spoken to who are aware of this, and congressional investigators are also looking into this, they say that the records of maybe 100 or more people could have been scrubbed due to this list.
All right, let's talk about this Jamal Badawi guy. Who is he?
Well, look, he's a Canadian Islamist scholar tied to some very controversial groups. As we mentioned, Hamas, Hezbollah, both terror organizations, has worked with a leading official of the Muslim Brotherhood, has been on record supporting fatwas calling for the killing of U.S. soldiers in Iraq. So many, many controversial things. Now, one of the most important parts of these emails that were released by Grassley is a section where you see these border officials communicating back and forth, and one of the officials is expressing concern and saying, quite literally, he's puzzled as to why this person is being allowed in.
I actually have a graphic of that email. Let me put it up. It says in the subject line, government confusion over Jamal Badawi, and I'll quote, "I'm puzzled how someone could be a member of the Muslim Brotherhood and an unindicted co-conspirator in the Holy Land Foundation trial, be an associate of redacted, say that the U.S. is staging car bombings in Iraq and that it is okay for men to beat their wives, question who is behind 9/11 attacks, and be afforded the luxury of a visitor visa and be de-watch listed." I'm sorry, this sounds nuts to me.
Quite a litany of things there.
Yeah.
You're right, it's quite a litany of things here. And those emails continue. The official expresses, look, if this is not incitement, I don't know what is. But this official is being told that the guy has to be let in according to the de-watch list. I think when these emails came out, it had already been 17 months since this person was de-watch listed.
Okay, so Jay Johnson, to be fair, Jay Johnson wasn't the Secretary of Homeland Security.
No, it was Napolitano at the time, and I'm told that the order to scrub these records may have very well come from the top. How else would you get into this system? There's a very complex security system that details where people have been, who they are, and who should be flagged and for what reasons. But there seems to be evidence that these files were whitewashed, that people went back into the system and deleted them, and that's how somebody becomes unflagged from the system.
If you're Jay Johnson and this is happening under your watch, do you want to be the guy who everyone points the finger at if one of these guys goes off. Like, hey, Jay Johnson, aren't you the director of Homeland Security? Isn't this your job to police these guys?
That's right. That's exactly what they're supposed to be doing, keeping track of who's coming into the country, who's going out, and for what reasons. To let something that happened under your predecessor slide by, I think, is very troubling. And I can tell you quite clearly, I've reached out to Customs and Border Patrol. They've told me, go to DHS with your questions. I've gone to DHS. They don't respond. They have nothing to say about this. And I think that's bolstered by this briefing that Grassley's staff had, where they refused to tell them anything about it.
Have you gotten anything out of Grassley, what he plans to do with this? Is he going to open an investigation, bring it to the House of Representatives, from the Senate? I mean, where does this go from here?
Well, that's really what it needs. It needs a leader in Congress to continue to take it forward, because that's the only way people are going to answer questions. My sense is that Grassley's staff is seeking another briefing where they can get further into this and actually be able to ask questions about the hands-off list, what it is, who was listed on it, who was allowed in, because right now none of those questions have been answered.
I'm sorry, I've watched some of those briefings with Kathleen Sebelius and people like Lois Lerner. They go nowhere.
Look, it's true. That's often the case. And if nobody's actually answering the questions and nobody's out there asking them, one guy trying to pressure them as much as possible, Senator Grassley's doing the same. But the answer from this administration on a whole litany of issues that relate to this have been, we're not going to say anything. And in the longer you don't say anything, they hope the issue goes away.
Doesn't this, I get it, the Democrats want amnesty because they see it as a future, in addition to a future voting majority. Why would the president want to let people in who may destroy his legacy, may turn the country against his political party? This just seems, on a pure political level, this seems completely counterintuitive to me.
You're right. It's very curious. And we don't know. We can only speculate. But I think logical people would conclude that a list of this nature that might have been ordered from the top levels of the government would have been created for political purposes. What else would you assemble this for and go back and alter records and do things of this nature unless you had a political reason to do so? Now, you got to put the pieces together. This is part of a much larger issue with the administration. Its ties to the Muslim Brotherhood, its advocacy on its behalf that we saw in Egypt. And I reported just last week the State Department's Counterterrorism Bureau got in hot water and in trouble over tweeting a link to a controversial Muslim cleric who has been associated with terrorist groups and who also endorsed this fatwa on the killing of U.S. soldiers. That's the State Department's Counterterrorism Bureau. So you see, it's going into all the different areas of the administration.
Great. So if there's another terrorist attack here in the United States, we'll be told it's because of a YouTube video.
Well, look, that is what they said in the past.
What difference does it make, right?
Well, look, of course you remember those Judicial Watch emails that were released from the administration that showed right at the time of the Benghazi attacks, they were saying, of course it's the video. Go out and tell everybody it's this video, rather than look inside at the flaws in the administration and the security issues that we all know existed.
All right, Em. Thanks for joining me tonight. Have a good weekend. Time for Will Count from the Web. Oh, this is